Red wines can be intimidating, especially for beginners. I'm going to take the mystery out of all this. We're going to look at what red wines are and 4 of the best red wines for beginners. Plus, as a bonus, I'll give you a quick list of the top 9 red wines in the world and briefly discuss which ones are most suitable for new wine drinkers. Are you ready to get started? Come on, let's go. Hey Posse, I'm Pierre and welcome to Asti Wine Consultants. As we're learning more about wine together, this episode is for those that are new or newer to drinking wine, and more specifically, red wine. During this video, you'll definitely get an idea of why you like or don't like some of the wines you're drinking. We'll look at the top red wines for beginners. Plus, as a bonus, I'll give you my quick list of the top 9 red wines in the world and which ones are most suitable for new wine drinkers. Now keep in mind, if at any time you like what you hear, click like, subscribe, and hit the little bell so you'll be notified when there's a new post. Also, make sure you share this with your friends. I'm sure they would appreciate it. If you're just beginning to drink wine, you may be drinking whites. Most beginners start with white wines. With that in mind, the reds I'm showing or are recommending in this particular episode are those that allow for an easier transition from whites to reds. Specifically, these wines are not very harsh, or as we say in the industry, they have low tannins. More on that as we get into this. Before I get into my recommendations, we need to talk about what makes wine red. Obviously, red wine, like all wine, is made up of grape juice, but the key to it being red is not just using red grapes. It's actually that the juice has been in contact with or fermented with the grape skins. Did you know that all grape juice is white or clear when the grapes are first crushed and the juice is initially made? All wine starts off as white wine. Once the grapes are crushed, red wine is made when the juice is fermented in contact with the grape skins, pulp, seeds, and stems. This is where the flavor and the color comes from for the red wines. Now, actually, you can learn more about this in my video on winemaking. Okay, so now that we've set our foundation regarding red wines, what are the top 4 red wines for beginners? The first red wine that I'll begin with is Pinot Noir. The reason I'm starting with Pinot Noir is that it is the lightest of all red wines. It's easier to approach. This is the perfect red wine for beginners. It makes for a great transition from whites to reds. Pinot Noir is a red grape. It's one of the oldest, most ancient of red grapes in the world. It comes from France, and they've been making a wine with it in France for 2,000 years. It's low in tannins, easy to drink, and not too dry. Now, the Burgundy region of France has some tremendous Pinot Noirs. An important thing to remember is if a bottle of wine is red and from Burgundy, France, then it's a Pinot Noir. Remember that. Most people don't realize this, but it's important because French wines typically won't list the varietal or the type of grapes on the bottle. Instead, they'll list the region that the wine is coming from or the name of the family that produces the wine. So you'll actually see the word Burgundy on the bottle. Now, that said, Pinots are made all across the world, particularly in areas with cooler climates, including France, Italy, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Australia, New Zealand, and of course the US. Now, in the US, it's made primarily in California, Oregon, and Washington State. Since 1979, the Pinot Noirs from Oregon, and more specifically, the Willamette Valley area have been some of the best Pinots in the entire world. Now, the reason Pinots are so good for beginners is because it has a softer, less powerful taste than all the other red wines. It's light and elegant. If you want to learn more about Pinot Noir, you might want to check out my video that tells all about it. There'll be more about that at the end of this episode. How are you doing there? Is this information making sense? If it is, write red wine in the comments below. So before we move on to the next 3 wines, if you want a very practical tool to help you decide which wines to buy, go to my website and get this refrigerator magnet. It's called the Noble Grape Magnet. On the magnet, I show the basic taste profiles of the world's best wines, along with some of the basic food pairings. The magnet also indicates which grapes are lowest in tannins, from Pinot Noirs all the way to Nebbiolos. I've got them rated 1 through 9. Now, tannin is the component in red wine that causes your mouth to dry out or pucker and protects the wine as it ages. Most red wines are known to be full, bold, and dry types of wine. As I mentioned earlier, you'll want to start with red wines with lower tannins, particularly if you're transitioning from whites to reds. Just follow the chart and you won't get stuck with wines that have gigantic tannins. This really is a great little resource for you to have. And again, just click this link to buy it on my website. Okay, back to our top 4 red wines for beginners. The next wine is Grenache, or in some parts of the world it's called Garnacha. Grenache is a darker red wine that comes from the Grenache grape. Typically it has a little bit more fruit flavor than the Pinot Noir. It's good for beginners because it's a softer red wine and also easy to drink. It has the fruit and the flavor without the big tannins. For more about Grenache or Garnacha, check out my video that tells all about it. There'll be more about that at the end of this episode. Now, another good wine to start off with would be Tempranillo. Many people call this Tempranillo, but the correct pronunciation is Tempranillo. Tempranillo wine comes from the Tempranillo grape. This grape originates in Spain and is ruby red and full-bodied. This is a great transition for new red wine drinkers because it's a little bit darker, has more fruit flavors, and a fuller body than Pinot Noir, but on the spectrum of tannins, it's in the mid-range. And typically you'll find that Tempranillo won't break your wallet. For more about Tempranillo, check out this video. Next up is red blends. Now, these are red wines that are made up of several different varietals or types of red wine blended all together. The reason these are good for new red wine drinkers is because when you're blending different grapes or grape varietals together, the characteristics of each grape or each wine balances out the flavors of the other grapes or wine. If they're from the US, it usually will tell you on the bottle that it's a red blend. These wines have a tendency to run the entire price gamut from the most expensive all the way to very modestly priced. By the way, whenever you're picking out a red blend, make sure you check on the label to see if it has one of the types of, or even several of the types of grapes you like. Well, there you have it. Pinot Noir, Grenache, Tempranillo, and red blends. The top 4 red wines for beginners. We'll get to the bonus in just a moment, but first of all, thank you so much for investing the time to watch this video. If you got something out of it, let me know in the comments below, and consider hitting subscribe. All right, are you ready for the bonus? Here's the list of the top 9 red wines in the world. They're in order from the most tannins to the ones with the least tannins. Like we mentioned earlier, the ones with the least tannins will be easier on most new red wine drinkers. Number 9, the Nebbiolo grape, which is Barolo and Barbaresco wines, 8 Cabernet Sauvignon, 7 Syrah, 6 Sangiovese, which is Chianti, 5 Tempranillo, 4 Malbec, 3 Merlot, 2 Grenache or Garnacha, and number 1 is Pinot Noir. Again, I would stick to the last two if you're a newer red wine drinker. That's Grenache and Pinot Noir. Or stick to 1 through 6 on the list. And don't forget, you can purchase our Noble Grape Magnet to keep a detailed version of this list on hand. Folks, thanks so much for investing the time to watch this video. I look forward to hearing some of your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, cheers. Hey Posse, thanks so much for investing the time to watch this video. I trust it was helpful to you. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And please consider hitting subscribe. Also, click here to check out our new online shop. We have a great lineup of wine-related items that will help you get the most out of your wine experience. Oh, and be sure to check out these other videos. Until next time, cheers.